Welcome to Read This Next with Laura and Nicole from the Thunder Bay Public Library. This week, we are changing things up and we're doing a mini segment for about 4 weeks where we discuss movies or TV shows basically on the screen at the library. And this week's topic is historical screams.
Historical stories on screen. Yes. So we're going to take this as kind of an opportunity to talk about things that are in the library's collection. And some of them are physically in the collection, like you can place a hold and sign them out. And then some of them are going to be available through our second newest special service, because the newest is magazines. Second newest is, it's called Canopy, and it's streaming movies and TV shows. So some of the ones that we recommend are going to be from that service, which will maybe encourage some of you, if you haven't tried out Canopy before, to check it out and see what's available.
Yeah, and you can find that if you just go to the main web page. There's a little spot that says digital library. Click that, boom, all of our online stuff right there. Easy peasy. All right, so do we want to get started then?
We shall.
Do you want me to start, or was this your rec?
It's your rec in that it's a connected thing to your when you wanted to do.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'll do my rec first then. How about?
Yes.
Okay. So my recommendation, we're changing it up completely, not discussing books, recommendations out of order. Who are we? My recommendation is Chernobyl, which is a mostly accurate documentary about the Chernobyl disaster. To it, Chernobyl, I can't say it's 100% accurate because my partner has been watching YouTube videos about the inaccuracies of it, which I'll get into it, but they made me feel a lot better. For those of you that don't know, watch it so you can find out, but it's basically what led up to and what happened after the nuclear power plant meltdown and explosion at Chernobyl. And it starts off with you're watching these characters as just immediately after it has occurred, and you're watching these people get infected by the radiation. And I will tell you, I do not like horror, gore, anything. So major trigger warning, if you're going to watch that first episode, do not.
Nicole.
Yeah, just skip it. Honestly, you just need to know that everything they depicted was horrible and for the most part not accurate. So all of the body horror that they show wouldn't happen. So for example, there's a guy who touches a piece of graphite and his hand is burning off after an hour or so or something, which wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So
okay. So some of it was for dramatic emphasis.
Yeah.
Not necessarily historical accuracy.
Yeah, I said to Alex, it was more like they tried to put all the intense pain and suffering that you don't see on screen that happened over years into an hour time period of these men that were first responders.
Yeah.
But it was still very good. So I think it's 5 episodes, and it was fascinating to see the real history behind it and learn about how it could have been dealt with better and how it actually it shouldn't have happened in the first place. It was very interesting. I would recommend it, but like I said, keep an eye out on episode 1 because it's kind of brutal. Oh, that was something I want to mention. If you are like me and you have certain things that maybe you don't want to see, maybe an animal dying in it, for example. Yeah. There's this lovely website called Does the Dog Die? And it will tell you any trigger warnings that are in an episode. So for example, in The Sopranos, it gives you someone dies.
It'll list it all out. I have seen this website. It's very useful.
I love it because the intense fear and dread when you're like, oh my God, there's a dog in this movie. It's either going to go one of two ways. You can look ahead of time so you can be prepared. So
Yeah.
it's a good website. And the other one I wanted to recommend before we continue on with our screens one is, I think, what did I call it? Or what is it called? Let me look it. It's called Rotten Apples. So there's Rotten Tomatoes, right? Which is the rating of movies and TV shows. Well, this is called
Yeah.
Rotten Apples. And you can look
Okay.
up the movie to see if it's associated with any people or directors or things like that are not necessarily
Oh,
good people.
that's interesting. As in like a few bad apples.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So
wow.
if you're more keen on making sure that the directors or the actors haven't done anything that you disagree with, then that's a good website for you.
Yeah.
Um, it's very interesting to look at it because some of them you're like, oh, didn't know that. Mm. But yeah, it was
Yes,
Chernobyl was great. That's my recommendation. And you said you have one to follow it up.
I do. I just want to say that I also watched Chernobyl
What do you
and
think?
also thought it was great. I thought it was great too. I think it did feel like they were leaning on like I really felt like it was much more of a like historical but story more than they were trying to really get the facts right.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly, that's often an easier and more enjoyable way to digest history anyway, is in like a story sort of format. Um, if you I think maybe if you knew a ton about it already, you might maybe be like, oh, well, they changed this and they changed that. But as someone
Probably.
who knew like nothing,
Same.
it was really, yeah, it was really great. And we do have that available in the collection. So you can place a hold and then take it home and watch about entirely different sorts of bad things happening. A real escape from today,
Yeah. Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It definitely was more of a plot and character driven, less factual.
Yes. Still
Yeah.
very good. It's not a criticism, just perhaps just a certain type of historical stuff.
Yeah. And it seemed like, based on what Alex was finding, that most of the inaccuracies came from how people had radiation poisoning in the show.
Yeah.
Like they just it felt like I was watching a dream I had as a child where bad things happened and like it was so unexpected that I was just like, I gotta go. I don't know if I can continue watching this. And then I did, but ooh, that first episode was
Yes.
rough.
Anything, the sort of stereotypical radiation poisoning, bad things that happen to you, those all happen in the first episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, though, for those of you that haven't looked it up, mostly you just get a red face. Like your skin gets burnt and then things happen afterwards, but you don't melt into a puddle of goo.
Yeah, that's good. That
Yeah.
wasn't great to watch. Not
No.
great to watch, no.
No.
Um, yeah. So my suggestion is actually even more explicitly, like it is openly a fictionalized version of a historical event. And it's based on a book. And we have the book in the collection, and we also have the series available. And I'm talking about the show The Terror.
Mm.
Yes, which came out a couple of years ago now. And it is about it's about going to look for the Northwest Passage. So it's 1845. It's the Franklin expedition. And off they go, thinking they're going to, discover something great. And they're aware of potential hardships. They expect, well, we might get stuck in the ice or whatever for a while, but they really think they're going to come through. And then, as it turns out, not so much. yes, they end up getting stuck. They're stuck there through a second summer in the Arctic Circle without a thaw. Encroaching ice and darkness, obviously running out of rations, which is a big deal, certainly. That's going to be a real problem. Poisonous food, a dwindling supply of coal, and the ships, there's a concern they could get crushed as the ice shifts.
Oh.
Yeah, so even though you're just sitting there, you're not even just safe in your ship. Things could happen. And it starts out there's 2 ships, and we're following the captain, who is well-meaning but kind of incompetent. and then other members of the crew. We follow them and get to know them quite well as the story goes on. And then in addition to all this, like actual terrible natural environment stuff that's happening, there's also there's also a supernatural element.
Oh, okay.
And this isn't a spoiler. Like, I believe it, like it would be in the description. An unseen predator stalking their ship, a monstrous terror clawing to get in. And when the expedition's leader, Sir John Franklin, meets a terrible death, Captain Francis Crozier takes command and leads his surviving crewmen on a last desperate attempt to flee south. Scurvy, starvation, mythical monsters. And it's about the fate of the I've got to say, I mean, when you name, this is the thing I don't understand. It's like, the ship's going on a really dangerous trip. There's all sorts of things that could go wrong. It's going to be cold, all this stuff. What should we name it? The Terror. It just seems like a bad,
You're setting yourself up for failure.
You're setting yourself up for failure. Seems like a bad plan. Like, anything that sounded more positive, a little more sunshiny would, it just sort of seems a little on the nose, like, oh, this horrible thing happened on a ship called the Terror.
Like, of course it did. Yeah.
Really? Yes.
I do have to say though, my immediate thought when you're talking about a monster in the Arctic is Frankenstein. Because for those of you that haven't read Frankenstein, which by the way, really good, it's the OG science fiction and perfect. Frankenstein's monster ends up in the Arctic, I'm pretty sure, chasing down the Frankenstein, the scientist. And I'm just like, he's still there. Now he's taking down the Terror. He's just like, I'm here now, and you can't get rid of me.
It is, it's more of the monster that you would perhaps expect from the environment.
By which I'm
saying, I'm, like a giant bear.
So it's a little less mythical. It's a little more. Is it just a bear?
Real. Well, is it a normal bear? Is it a regular bear? What's happening?
We don't know. Well, Laura knows.
Yeah. Anyway, really good. Really, like super atmospheric and gripping, and really good acting. You get the captain who's like trying to make the best of all sorts of terrible decisions, and then you get the doctor who was like, things are really bad. How honest do I be with people if I want them to still have some hope? Maybe I don't give them all the facts about how we're all headed to die from starvation. So just like, it kind of makes you think, it's like a fun little speculative thing on your comfy couch at home. You're like, what would I do if I was trapped in the ice in the Arctic? Would I go on the, because you can either stay on the ship or you can be one of the people who packs up and goes off and tries to find help. What would you do? You can kind of consider for yourself.
Take a real hard look at yourself in the mirror and be like, would I survive? No.
There's lots of scope for imagination there. And you can watch the show, and then you can also, if you want, you can read the book that it was based on,
Mm.
which is The Terror by Dan Simmons. And then we're also going to have a recommendation to a show that's on Canopy, which is that aforementioned TV and movie streaming service. And there's a whole series about the saga of Arctic exploration. And then episode 4 in particular is about like not just what happened with Sir John Franklin, but also explorers like Henry Hudson, and kind of just an overview of how people have tried to get through the Northwest Passage into the North Pole, and what sort of things the kind of problems they tend to run into in that area. And that's something you can watch on Canopy.
And what was that one called?
So this series on Canopy, it's called The Saga of Arctic Exploration. And this one in particular is episode 4 of Polar Explorations. And it's it's part of the Great Courses, which is something on Canopy that we have access to, and it's unlimited views. So you can watch as many of the Great Courses as you want. You could watch this entire thing, learn so much about the Arctic.
Without a limit. Learn about it all. Enjoy it. I've heard that what did you call the grouping of them again?
The Great Courses.
The Great Courses. I've heard they're really good. From the staff members that I know who have used them, they've really enjoyed them. So go check them out. Go check them out. I will jump down to another one that I watched, which was Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Right.
Not the one with Tom Hanks, because I was really struggling before this episode, and Laura knows this, to find what the title was of the not Tom Hanks version of the Mr. Rogers documentary. And I'm pretty sure they're called the same thing, but I could be wrong. I was having a hard time. So this one's called Maybe Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I watched this, I want to say 3 years ago, and I bawled my eyes out. I'm of the age where I watched Mr. Rogers when I was a kid, and watching the documentary, it was a very interesting. Sorry for those of you who are watching again, my dog. Where was I? Oh yeah.
Documentary.
Yes, so it's a documentary about Mr. Rogers' life involving his show and the way that he viewed teaching children and the behind the scenes of them fighting to have the show be free and on PBS and like not have any restrictions to it, and him and the fight that he had trying to get very diverse people on, even though, and it also addresses the limitations that he had with that, especially considering the postman was Black and he also was gay, but they in the show talked about the decision that was made with them about him not coming out until after the show was done.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine. That must have been so hard, but it was basically America's not ready for you to be both.
Yeah.
On this show for kids, which was it was very interesting. So it doesn't just cover the light topics of Mr. Rogers, it also covers the more controversial things that happened with him. Like a lot of people thought maybe that he wasn't a great person and shouldn't be around children, or that he had an agenda, which they also address. But I have to say, the reason I bawled was because there's one scene where Mr. Rogers is talking, I believe, about him meeting older Mr. Rogers fans. And he was talking about how everybody just needs to know that they're important, that they're special, they're valued, and I just sobbed. Now, I had a sinus infection at the time, so maybe it was my antibiotics, but I was just tears streaming down my face because it was just such a beautiful message to end on that I think everybody needs to hear. And if you want to watch something that'll make you feel all the feelings but walk away happy, this is a good one for you. It was very sweet.
sounds like a good warm hugs.
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Would fit in with that episode that we had done.
Warm hugs.
Warm hugs.
That's my favorite genre. Uplifting. But yeah, very good.
I did not watch Mr. Rogers. I would have thought he was before your time, actually.
He was I think I was just at the tail of it, or I was watching reruns because
we didn't watch. But then again, when I was a child, we basically only watched TVO. We didn't have PBS, so maybe that's part of it. So I didn't have Mr. Rogers.
Did you watch Ants in Your Pants?
No.
Classic.
Doesn't sound familiar. Anyway, neither here nor there. So I didn't watch Mr. Rogers, so this doesn't have the same emotional impact. But it still sounds very interesting because a lot of those same things you can see in how, like, for example, things are presented on Sesame Street. With the type of humans that are on the show and the types of, I think, even like relationships or things they're shown doing and how that changes over time. Because I have watched probably more than my share of Sesame Street lately, because I have a little one at home. It's not just my personal favorite show.
She just likes to watch it in her spare time.
You know what? Not that there'd be anything wrong with that, because Sesame Street holds up, okay?
I believe it.
It holds up. I think it is. It is interesting and important to think about the kind of people that we're putting in front of our children on TV, because they do develop relationships with them. There's a lot of interesting stuff being done about the kind of relationships that teenagers and adults develop with someone, say, that they listen to on a podcast, or they check their Instagrams all the time, and it can be a celebrity or it can be someone who's like famous online, but you develop these relationships where you feel like you know them, even though you really don't.
It's very curated.
Yes, and it's these parasocial relationships, super interesting to study. But I think children form those really quickly and easily and instinctively with the people they're exposed to in media. So you do have to pay attention to what are they watching, what's up there. Is what they're providing something you want your kid to be seeing over and over? Is the world of Paw Patrol a dystopian landscape controlled by one 11-year-old boy who for some reason runs an entire town?
What's up with that?
Paw Patrol is wild.
Kids love it though, man.
They love it. My kid loves it. Do we watch it? Yes.
For the longest time, when kids would come to the library and they'd be like, I want Paw Patrol books, I thought they were saying Papa Troll. And I'm like, who is Papa Troll? Do you mean the Smurfs? They're like, no, Paw Patrol. I'm like, what are you saying? And then the parent would tell me, and I was like, oh.
Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
Dogs and trucks, sirens. What more do you need?
That's all everybody wants.
That's all everybody wants. And there's absolutely no lessons learned in Paw Patrol. Nothing, actually. Surprisingly so. Sometimes you're like, there's an opportunity, and they purposefully went in the other direction.
Wow. If you want good life lessons, watch, I can't remember if we've discussed this on the show before, but watch what is that? Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! The first season is just like, my name's Yugi and I have to save my friends.
That's nice.
We need to save these people because they're my friends. And it's like every episode is, we'll win with the power of friendship. And that's how they talk. And my mom didn't let me watch those kinds of shows when I was a kid. And now watching them as an adult, I'm like, why? They're the most pure show that I've seen.
Okay. So that, I think we have one more. We could do one or the other.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll do Anne with an E.
Sure.
Okay. So this last one is another one that is also available through the library. You can place a hold. And obviously, we also have the book, Anne of Green Gables. You can read the book, place a hold. yeah, so this is a series that I was honestly a little bit skeptical about because I grew up watching the Kevin Sullivan version, which used to be on like Roach Avonlea was Sunday nights, and then every so often they'd show the Kevin Sullivan version of Anne of Green Gables. And so I was like, that's my Anne. I don't know if I need another Anne in my life. But reviews have been very good. It certainly sounds worth checking out. Do you want to read the little description?
Sure. Wait, did you say did I want to?
I did.
Yeah, okay. All right. And oh, this makes sense. Okay, Anne with an E, initially titled Anne for its first season within Canada. We were looking it up in the collection and I couldn't figure out why one was called Anne and the other two were called Anne with an E. There we go.
There we go.
So it's a Canadian television series adapted from Lucy Maud Montgomery's classic. So it premiered on CBC, internationally on Netflix. This doesn't give me any description about it. Give me 1 sec. This is no synopsis. Here we go.
Okay.
1896, elderly brother and sister Matthew and Marla Cuthbert decide to adopt an orphan boy to help out with around their ancestral farm of Green Gables on the outskirts of the Canadian town Avonlea?
Avonlea.
Avonlea.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry.
You have no exposure to this at all?
I watched Pippi Longstocking and for the longest time thought they were the same thing.
They would like each other.
They would.
They would be friends. No, it's just Avonlea.
I think I read the first one, but it was so long ago that it was not my flavor. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. I just kind of feel I expect every young girl, Canadian girl, to have some familiarity with Anne. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
I know the basics, but that's yeah. I know. No, that might be Pippi Longstocking. Does someone dip her hair in ink?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I did read it then.
Yes, that's Anne of Green Gables. Pippi Longstocking would just be like, cool.
She'd be like, wow, I got black hair now.
Yeah, she'd be into it.
Okay, when Matthew goes to pick up the child at the railway station, he finds 13-year-old Anne Shirley, an imaginative, bright, high-spirited, and talkative girl instead. Anne was orphaned when her parents died when she was a few months old and lived as a servant in various households before being placed in an orphanage. While Matthew decides he would like for her to stay, Marilla doesn't trust Anne, given her status as an unknown orphan and the perceived uselessness of a young girl. Her distrust appears confirmed when Marilla cannot locate a brooch, thus leading her to believe Anne is a thief. And it's my understanding they slowly learn Anne is great, they fall in love with her, and they keep her around and they send her to school.
That is accurate.
Wow. Yeah. Nailed it.
I don't know how they deal with it in the show, but I almost said in real life, by which I mean it's the book.
In real life,
what actually happened, the facts are that brooch, of course, Anne didn't take the brooch. It got caught on Marilla's shawl when she wore it to church.
Of course.
Just blamed Anne and said, whatever it was, you can't do this until you give an apology. So Anne comes up with a really great imaginary apology about how she dropped it in the pond. And then, of course, when Marilla finds the amethyst, is like, well, why did you lie? And Anne said, well, you wanted an apology. So I gave you an apology. Anyway. She nailed it. Just delightful. I love the character of Anne Shirley. I know there was people when the show came out like, oh, she doesn't. There was actually some pretty unkind, nasty stuff said about the actress who's playing Anne on the TV show.
Interesting. Like in this most recent one?
Yeah, about her being ugly. Yeah, not, like she doesn't look like Anne because she's not attractive enough, which is like the way she's actually described. She's not supposed to be like, really the actress who plays her in the Kevin Sullivan version is probably too pretty, too conventionally pretty. Like Anne is she's supposed to have character. Mm-hmm. And also, like when you're supposed to be I feel like that's a very awkward, gangly age anyway, like 11-ish, right?
Yeah,
Anyway,
skinny as a stick.
exactly. So people said some unkind things there. And I know that the show, like they tried to modernize it in some ways that made some people like, oh, well, why would you do that? But like there was there was things going on, like in regards to like class inequality and racial inequality. Those things were happening in Prince Edward Island during that time. Ellen Montgomery didn't write about them, but that doesn't mean that they don't fit into that kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
So I think worth checking out just to see that sort of a different prism of the same story that you may have read or enjoyed before,
Or didn't like
or
me.
didn't enjoy it if you don't like joy. And
Maybe
people,
I'll like this show because I haven't read it, and I'll
people
just
finding like home and yeah, it's great.
yeah, found home. It's
Yeah,
good. It's good stuff.
I mean, Anna
Found
Brooke
family.
Bagels is not even my favorite Ellen Montgomery by a long shot, but
Didn't you recommend
I recommended
something
it.
about Blue?
The Blue Castle I recommended.
Yeah, go check out that episode. I don't know what one it was, but
It was romances. It was one of our romance ones from February.
There you go. Go back to February. Somewhere in there.
I'll link
It'll
to
pop
it.
up.
I'll link to it.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds really cute. I mean, I think I would probably like Anne of Green Gables. I just never
Just
did.
haven't before. That's fair, honestly.
I was reading things like The Secrets of Droon. Like they go into a closet. Kid. Yeah, oh yeah. It's a perfect example. It's from the beginning. I was a fantasy kid. They go into a closet, they turn on the light, and boom, they're in Droon. And you're reading about Nova Scotia. No, PEI, sorry.
Oh, did you see my appalled face?
I did. I'm so sorry. I knew right away when I said it was wrong. I just yikes.
To be fair, Anne Shirley was born in Nova Scotia. So there you go.
See, I know the lore.
The lore. That's right.
Well, I think we probably hit the half an hour mark, so I will wrap up our show today.
Good.
So thank you for enjoying Read This Next. We'll see you again next week. Make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. We're at TBAPL across the board. Like, comment, subscribe. We do read our comments, and we would also love if people could review us on any podcast platform. We have one review on Apple Podcasts.
But we're willing to accept many more.
Absolutely. Fill it out. We will take and maybe we'll read them. Who knows?
Yeah. Give you a shout out.
Yeah. Give everybody a shout out. Anyways, we will see you all next week. Goodbye.